Well, a very happy Friday morning to you all, and it's actually nice to be doing this on a Friday because okay, I'm not actually recording this on a Friday, but you're listening to it on a Friday. It's nicer because isn't Friday? It's just like the best day. Now, with my guest here, Father Geckle, actually that's a good question because weekends are probably the hardest part of the week for you, Father. So I guess is Friday kind of like you're gearing up for like okay, here comes the hard part of the week.
It depends on the weekend. Sometimes
Depends on the
it's
weekend. Yeah.
yeah, if I'm traveling more then it's gearing up and get on the road, but it just depends. But hey, it's better to be doing something than doing nothing. So
This is absolutely true, but see, I guess at least it's not a Monday morning like with Matt's. It's like
oh,
Monday
good
mornings for me
heavens.
are so tough, and it's just like oh, you gotta get up, and so people are kind of groggy, and I hope that Matt and I give them a little bit of light and happiness, but now people are kind of at their peak. They're at their peak form. Their brains are working better than any other time during the week, so that's exactly why we're starting a new show with Father Geckle. And it's going to be Fridays with Father Geckle. Now, we're going to be publishing this on two channels, Catholic Family Podcast, but more importantly, on the Traditionalists. Now, the Traditionalist starts officially on January 1st. We have a bunch of really cool hosts, and I really mean that. I think it's going to be a really, really neat channel. People with a lot of different opinions, different approaches, styles, etc. And we're going to be doing, should be for sure, daily content, maybe a couple videos per day of very different material, but looking to cover current affairs. So that could be politics, it could be movies, I suppose, culture, kind of whatever is in the zeitgeist, I suppose, of the time. So that's what we are planning to do. Father and I are kind of planning to do a couple of shows, at least this one for a kind of a practice pancake to see, first of all, if Father can stand talking to me for more than a few minutes at a time. He's done it a couple of times already, so I guess we'll
Oh,
hope that
it's
will last.
I'm trying to shorten my purgatory.
Working on your humility, right,
No.
Father? Yeah, yeah,
Penance,
patience and
penance.
humility. Yeah, penance. Yeah, exactly. That'll do it. And it's going to be interesting. Again, most of these are going to be on the political channel. So everyone watching this on Catholic Family Podcast, remember there is a political channel. That's why we're doing this. But please go and subscribe now. That is going to be the Traditionalists. I'll attach a link, of course, to this video. You can go and subscribe now. There'll be a little bit of content trickling in until January 1st when we officially begin, and then it's going to go kaboom, and it's going to be awesome. Today, Father, I guess I'll let you. Is there anything you want to comment on before we get to the story?
No, let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it. All right, then we're talking today about Hunter Biden. It's kind of the news story out there. And it's kind of funny. Father and I have both been a little bit unplugged from the internet, I suppose, in the last few days. I'm trying to stay away from it. I've given up my phone for Advent completely, which is
Oh, that
pretty
would be
hard.
nice.
I'm not going to lie. Oh man, I'm kind of when you kind of you're addicted to something, you get away for it for a couple days, and you're kind of like, oh, I need my phone. It's terrible, but it's also very freeing. It's actually very nice to get all of this stuff out of your mind and frees you up a little bit. But again, back to the story. President
Sorry.
Biden. This is FoxNews.com, by the way. President Biden pardoned his son Hunter Biden after the first son was convicted in two separate federal cases earlier this year. The announcement was made by the White House on Sunday night. The pardon applies to offenses against the U.S. that Hunter Biden has committed or may have committed from January 1st, 2014 to December 1st, 2024. So that is any crime. That's pretty. I think that's the first thing to kind of comment on. So it's any crime he may have committed in a 10-year span. Isn't it kind of wild?
Or
Like
will
when I
commit.
first
Or
heard this, I
will
was like,
commit.
it was just one thing. It was a gun charge or whatever. But it's any crime.
Yeah.
Wow.
The first thing that comes to my mind here is what if a different side had done this? Like what if you had some, you know, uh, Trump, or if you had some Christian, um, I don't know, whatever, somebody from the more conservative side that had something like this. Oh, everybody would be erupting about how unjust it was and how tyrannical it was and how justice isn't being served. And it just when the left does it, oh, it's completely normal and reasonable that they do this. It shows you where the real levers of power are, or the connections are with the justice system. um,
It's so
that's the
true.
first thing that comes to mind. And with that, just how unjust this is. Like, just
And
there's no
dangerous.
justice done if you have the right
Well, and
connections.
dangerous, right? As you said, I mean, and Biden lied about it. So Biden said, well, I'm going to let the entire system play out. I'm not going to interfere with it. And now he, of course, interfered with it, which most people thought he would.
That's
It,
nothing new. That's nothing
no, yeah,
surprising.
of course. Wait,
I
Biden
mean,
lied? Wait, a
when
politician lied?
yeah, I mean, when you believe that truth is relative, it doesn't matter what position you hold, and you don't have any principles, and you can change them all the time, and that's something you see all the time. Like, do you remember that clip of Biden in the, I don't know, it was like '07 or '08, something like that, maybe earlier, where he was going on about just how ridiculous it is that they're talking about legalizing gay marriage. And he was it was a news interview, and he was just like, this is the United States of America. I mean, come on. And just saying how ridiculous it was that that was even being thought of. And uh, now it's like, how could you even think of, and he even says in some made up
Exactly.
stories that he comes up with that my dad showed me, oh, these two guys, and that's great.
Didn't he
It
say
just,
like his uncle got eaten by cannibals or something? He's had some
oh, that's a new
wild,
one. No.
wild ones where he's gone off on
Yeah.
like just like, dude, what are you talking about? But famously, he had to drop out of the race running for president back, I don't know,
Oh man.
78, something like that, 80,
Yeah.
some back decades ago because he plagiarized one of his speeches. He just straight up plagiarized
Mm.
it. They caught him on it. And he had to pretty much because of that drop out of the race. So he is a liar, which is again how father how do we get to a point in supposedly the greatest country in the world where for sure that your politicians are lying immoral scumbags? I mean, like, how did we get here? Like, I mean, that's not what it's supposed to be, and I think we take it for granted, or we just assume it is. Of course, I mean, he's a politician, of course he's a terrible person. Has it always been like that? I mean, what do you think? Is that a modern issue, or is that in, I don't know, just always the case with leadership, I suppose?
I'm not a political expert. I'm not a history buff by any means, but I think obviously, we're in a modern day where relativism is more of a thing. So there's less care about what the truth is and holding on to standards and beliefs and principles. So on that score, of course, it's more of a modern thing. I think people in past centuries had more of a sense of right and wrong, more a sense of, I mean, just dignity, like, sticking to your guns. And I'd rather fight you than lie, or have someone call me a
Hmm.
liar. Like, but in general, it's got to be something that's been around since the dawn of time, or
Hmm.
the dawn of man, or dawn of civilization, at least. Power corrupts, and if all that you desire is political power, then what's a lie?
Yeah.
If you don't, especially if you don't believe in God or believe that there's any accountability to God, um, whether you are an atheist and don't believe in God, or whether you're a saved by faith alone Protestant that believes that it doesn't matter what they do as long as they mean well, or as long as they believe in Christ, they can do whatever they want. Um, then shouldn't be any surprise that there's so much blatant corruption. I'm just grateful that, well, it seems like more people are waking up to just how bad it is, and hopefully there can be some accountability for it.
Well, you wonder like if this had happened, 'cause I've been reading a lot about the English Middle Ages, and the people
Mm.
were pretty easy to rise up and and threaten their kings and queens and say, hey, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to raise taxes, and if you do, then we're going to rebel. And a lot of wars and rebellions happen that way. And I think these days we just don't really do anything. I mean, so like the funny thing about this entire story is that it's going to be a story for a week or two, and it'll be mentioned throughout because Trump's going to say you attacked me because of this exact issue, the Hunter Biden laptop and all this stuff, and then of course it all ends up being that they just let it go, and now nothing's going to happen, I guess is my point. Like what actually is affected by this? Nothing really. We all know that Trump, that Biden was this immoral, lying, horrible president in person. So what are we going to do? It just it kind of
Yeah.
that's kind of the depressing part in my mind is like this is a really dangerous precedent to set. And actually, I think it's in a way good for Trump because now Trump's like, oh really? Oh okay. So
Mm.
you're just going to pardon him because he's your son. So okay, I can pardon anybody I want, right? About anything, which in theory a president can, I suppose. But boy, it's a dangerous precedent to set.
Yeah. Well, two points here. First of all, It really is a scary thing to look at, just the short attention span that we as a society have.
Hmm.
That shocking stories like this, or other things that should be huge scandals that reshape how political institutions are run or managed, um, because of our short attention span and because of all the distractions, and new information, new data, new stories, new coverage, the important things like COVID, like the lockdowns, like the COVID, the jabs. I think we're allowed to say that now.
Yeah,
Those things
we'll
get
see.
swept under the rug, and people like, oh yeah, I remember that was so long ago. I wonder what'll
So true.
happen to the people that foisted that on us. Huh? Oh, look, 50% off at Walmart. The attention span is so short that, in the left, the media, the liberals capitalize on that with the just distract with something else. And the second point I wanted to mention is that, um, that, and it ties in with this, that because there's such a short attention span, so much distraction, so much diversion, there aren't the repercussions that there should be,
Hmm.
the accountability that there should be. You said in the past, in English history and elsewhere, the people would rise up and, uh, because they could, and he didn't have all of these institutions keeping them down, FBI, CIA, big tech, etc., that squelch these kind of things, or have the funding to squelch these things, or to pay off judges, etc. Of course there was corruption in the past, obviously, nobody denies that, but, in the past, you would have more, um, honest politicians, more, probably, because there was a price to pay, and
Yeah.
now there isn't a price to pay.
Yeah, no, no, I think you're exactly right, and I guess that's I think as you said a bit ago that people are waking up to it a little. That they're starting to realize, okay, something's wrong. That this can't be allowed to happen. But I also think that a lot of what you see is people then voicing their frustration and whatnot on Twitter and Facebook and podcasts. And all, and it's a good question for
Guilty as
I suppose.
charged.
Yeah, exactly. For both of us, it's like, okay, but what are we going to do besides complaining about it on a podcast? And it's a fair question. And so I fully admit, I'm not saying that I'm the one who actually takes to the streets with a pitchfork. And obviously we both know, as Catholics, that you shouldn't rebel against proper authority. I mean, almost ever. I suppose there's very occasionally good reason, but what do we do? I think it is. I mean, and I suppose it has to start. And my dad mentions this quite a bit, is it's got to start at the primary level. So
Mhm.
I mean primaries politically. So I think we get into this area as Republicans or whatever you want to call us, where we just don't even vote until it's a major election. And so all of the worst creeps get in because their side or whatever, they pay for it or whatever reason it is, and you get a couple votes and they get in, and you don't actually have the real men and women who actually do want the best for America to even have a chance to run for these major positions. And
Mhm.
I think that's something that
Right.
has to really change. So I think we do need to get more involved in politics, and especially local politics. And I think that's a big reason why we wanted to do this channel. So that if we're talking about these things, and hopefully people from all over the world come on. We have a guy from Poland, a guy from England, who are going to be part of
Nice.
this team. And I think that's helpful also, so that you'll be able to see these issues happen from all over the world. They're similar, and I can tell you, yeah, I'm sure someone from Poland, he's going to be able to tell us much more about, okay, yeah, what does communism look like? What does the being squished between Germany and Russia, etc. And I think that's going to be a really good input. And I hope that, especially for Americans, it gives us a depth of knowledge or awareness, I suppose, that may help us to make decisions better and say, okay, hey, this guy is pro mandates or vaccine mandates. He wants to shut the things down. He wants big government, etc. What's the problem with that, and how do we fix it? I suppose that's the hopefully maybe we'll help a little bit with that.
Yeah, and that's why I am very much on board with this project, with the Traditionalists channel. Why I'm going to be involved. I do think it could, uh, I do think it can do some good and help people. Obviously, it's a way for us to connect with others that are traditional Catholic. But I also hope that it can bring in some people that are not, that are outside the church, and maybe
Totally.
help give them perspective, and direction and say, oh, these guys make sense, and I agree with that. If not everything, I agree with most everything they're saying. Maybe they're not so bad after all. Because like I'm in the South, United States of America in the South, and people, in general, people are way more kind and nice, and it has a lot of moral problems, of course, because it doesn't have principles given to it by the church. But with that said, there's a lot of anti-Catholic bias and discrimination or prejudices, and I've had a number of people that had never met a Catholic priest before, had never really met true Catholics before, and they were kind of stunned that, oh, they're friendly, and they're not just condemning you right off the bat or preaching at you right off the bat. But anyway, um, I'm hopeful that we can help reach some people talking about topics that are current, that have bearing on people, because you're right. Just talking on a podcast or on social media is not going to affect change unless it gets people motivated to actually do something about it. You know,
Yeah.
uh, we we know that the path to hell is paved with good intentions, or and having the intention or the desire to do something or to change isn't going to cut it. So the most important thing we need to do is, of course, the spiritual. We have to be prepared to meet our maker. That's the most important thing. And if we need to pray, we need to have our spiritual lives in order, be ready to have a good relationship with God, because we could all die tomorrow. And well, if we live like that, then we're going to live as better human beings. We're going to live as more moral human beings. We're going to be more of a help to others. We're going to be accountable to God, and to our neighbor and to ourselves. And so that spiritual perspective is so important. Also, of course, still in the spiritual, um, uh, hopefully we will not hopefully we will be talking about current issues in the light of, well, what, at least for my show, what is the Catholic principles here, or what are
Exactly.
some Catholic viewpoints. And again, some of our listeners are already going to know everything, but there will be some that don't. And maybe if we can present to them this better perspective, something that's solid and reasonable and is tried and true from 2,000 years of history and experience, to better society, to better civilization, from the individual to the family to the community to the country. And that's what we need. We need that guidance from the church, not the Novus Ordo Church that is the liberal and progressive and globalist and a bunch of other things. We need true principles to guide us that only come from God, that come from His church. But we want that. We want the spiritual guidance, but we also want a need in society and um, individually, the betterment. If we, as you said, your dad mentioned, you have to start smaller to build up to the larger, and we can't expect society to be bettered if we don't better ourselves.
Right.
Because if you have one member of the family that is dysfunctional, as far as, really harming the family by their bad decisions, um, the family is going to suffer. It's not going to be as strong, as productive, and effective as it could be. There won't be as much harmony. There won't be as much structure. There will have some level of dysfunction. Um, the more the individual is bettered and uh, doing what they should do morally, then the better the family will prosper and be able to help others and expand beyond just their family. Obviously, that's the microcosm of society. The family is the most basic unit of society. And so we, making up society as individuals or as families, we need to better ourselves. Whatever to We all have things that we can work on, and that's something that I want to talk about. With the show that I'll be doing each week, want to hopefully tie that in, whether it is with interviews with people or whatever. So yeah,
Absolutely. No,
yeah,
and I appreciate that, Father. And I think too, in normal times, we would have a pope who would be leading us through these difficult issues. And it's an amazing thing. You go back and read encyclicals and papal letters from actual popes, and they would actually give us answers for current problems. Like, okay, hey, here's a problem with communism. Okay, here's an answer. Boom. And here's another one.
Hmm.
You want it more detailed? Here's another one. And they really guided their flock. They're the papa, right? They're the ones who are there for us. And we don't have that right now. And that's very clear. Francis is very much a member of the problem, and
Hmm.
everyone knows
Right.
that who's watching this channel. I cannot imagine anyone who's watching this right now thinks otherwise. So maybe you still think he's the Pope. No one thinks he's part of the solution for the betterment of the world. So that's a whole nother discussion if that's possible, etc. But you know, and I think that's something that I hope, again, right, exactly, with you, Father, with the guidings of the church. And I think if you read these encyclicals, and that's part of why I like the name of the new channel, because I it kind of came to me through a quote from Pope Pius X, where he says,
Mm.
"The true friends of the people are not the innovators or the revolutionaries, but the traditionalists." Now, you got to be careful, because there's a priest I know who would say that's copy paste theology, or copy pasting a quote for your own good, and it's kind of true, because I think Pius X was talking much more about innovators in the church, of priests who are trying to make things
Sure.
new,
Yeah.
and
Right.
but
Right.
I do think it still applies as well to
Well,
culture and society.
yeah, and that's actually that touches on a point that I've had a lot in my mind thinking about what are we going to do with this channel? I have no idea yet for sure, but that very point, the traditionalists, it's not saying that every tradition must be adhered to and there can be no
No,
development. Obviously not. If that were the case, then we'd all have to be Amish
right,
and drive
right,
buggies around and or Muslim like the Muslims and wear the
yeah,
old, wear the old
the full
clothing
robes,
and
yeah, right,
yeah. I think that's a really I think that's a really good thing to hopefully delve into more when we've given it some more thought.
for sure, for sure,
Just that just because we love tradition and we want to be traditional, it doesn't mean that we think you can't have phones, you can't have technology, or that advances in civilization and culture are not bad in themselves. There can be and always are good developments in culture if they're guided by solid and good principles. But and one of the ways to be guided by good and solid principles is to hold on to the traditions of the past, um, and most especially, of course, what has been handed down to us from Christ through His church. Those are our guiding principles, and as long as we stay within those bounds, we can be true to tradition while not getting in the way of proper development of culture and society.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly, and I think that's it's going to be the fun part, right? That I think, but see, I think that is the fun part, and I think it's also there'll be a great show. I think we're going to have maybe January 1st or around there, where we'll talk about the difference between conservatism and traditionalism, the right and the left, and I think the right and left that came from the French Revolution, right, or right after the French Revolution, where you had the people on the right were the ones who were pro monarchy, which is more
Hmm.
traditional. They're pro monarchy. They're pro more family, more of the old style of running things, which was not necessarily it's not necessarily perfect. I think we'd all obviously see that the monarchy during the French Revolution was, or before it, was also not perfect. They had plenty of things they did wrong. It was a very messed up economy, etc. There was a reason why people rose up and killed them all. Now, obviously, the worst side clearly was the left, who murdered all the Catholics and the Catholic monarchs. But it wasn't perfect, and that's kind of the case here again as well. That just because you're saying, okay, we're on the right, we like monarchy, family, God, etc. Yeah, it doesn't mean we have to go and wear robes. And it can really go for so far, because I think it's one of those things. I talked with someone at one point. We're talking about Marian modesty. So
Mm.
Marian modesty, you think, okay, that is to be modest like Our Lady, and this person actually was like, well, then we need you dressed like Our Lady. Like, well, no, I mean, not literally, not literally like Our Lady, because then you'd be wearing a full
The
veil, and I
veil.
mean,
Yeah. Right. Right.
robes,
Right.
or whatever was Our Lady wore. And same
You
with,
have to
do
observe
I have to wear
Jewish customs then,
sandals?
huh?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's obviously not realistic. Marian modesty means that we dress what would be more like approved by Our Lady, which is also given to us fairly clearly by the church. So
Mm.
it is you can go too far, and I know people, they hear the name of it too, and they're like, oh, what does that even mean? But it's like, okay, calm down. It's giving a view of what's going on now from from a more old-fashioned perspective, I suppose.
What I think will be very intriguing and interesting, I'm hoping, or it could be chaotic and problematic, is that we're gonna have different individuals with different shows and different takes on things and different
Yeah.
applications of principles, because that's one of the things when you have principles is that the practical application of them will vary depending on different situations. It doesn't mean the principles go away or that right and wrong go away or morals go away. Um, but it does mean that different people will react differently and follow different standards, or maybe not different standards, but different practices and traditions. Like,
Right.
and that will be very interesting because we're not just cookie cut, to be exactly the same.
Right.
And that's something that the church has spoken about with different countries as being a very beautiful thing, that you have different countries with different strengths and weaknesses, but they have different strengths, they have a different richness. This isn't diversity as our strength talking point at all, as far as what the left means by diversity. But it does mean that in the Catholic sense, a true Catholic sense, that there is a richness in looking at the different cultures and traditions of different
Exactly.
countries and nationalities. That's a beautiful thing, and it'll be really interesting, I think. I hope with this channel to be able to delve into that. You mentioned somebody from Poland and England, and we have people from different states and states in the U.S. It should be interesting to see where these different people come from with regard to what does it mean to be a traditionalist? What does it mean? What traditions are we holding to? What standards, etc.? Should be
Well,
very interesting.
and just as an example, so on our logo,
Logo.
logo, it's the traditionalist, and underneath says God, family, country. So that
Mhm.
was just in my mind. We're just thinking of a logo. Okay, it's like, okay, what describes what does that mean? What is traditionalism? And that just kind of came to my mind, and it seemed to make sense to me. Now, one of our hosts, who I'm sure he now get into this in some podcast in the future, said that no, it should be the other way around. It should be God, country, family. And immediately I was like, wait, what? And I still think I'm right. I still think it is God, family, country. But his arguments are very interesting and they are very thought provoking. And it's not just we're so easy, especially in this time of the internet, where it's so easy for us just to be like, we hear something that it's against what we think to be true. Like our opinion, we hear something against our opinion, we think, well, that's dumb.
Hmm.
That's stupid because it's not my opinion, so it must be that. How can you ever grow from that, Father? And I think that's something that, again, I think you're so right, where we can hear these different opinions. Doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but we can actually consider them and actually, okay, okay, wait, you think it should be God, country, family first?
Yeah.
Okay, why? And then actually hear the reasoning. It's like, okay, it's a really interesting reasoning. It's something, again, everyone stay tuned.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have that show in the future because it is a very thought provoking, and that's the richness of what we can have, and if you can have people who have a little bit of intelligence, but also intellectual honesty. I think that's so much a part of what we need more. We need more just discussions where it's like, okay, let's just hear each other out and not be
Hmm.
ready to jump down each other's throat because we don't agree on everything.
Yeah. That's something that really I think was a very beneficial thing going to boarding school, because it opened up so many doors to, oh, well, this is how they do things. This is their tradition.
Hmm.
Like your family was like my second family. And I remember that first time I went to you guys' house for Thanksgiving break. It's like, well, we don't do this on Thanksgiving, or we don't have that, or it's just different traditions.
Yeah,
And it was like, and it wasn't just Thanksgiving. It was living, in the boarding school. There's different ways, different culture, and if even in different families in the same country. And as a teenager and growing up, that was a really good thing. It was all within a Catholic school and guided by Catholic principles and taught by Catholic priests and nuns, etc. But there was different opinions and different ways of doing things, and that was a really good thing for me. Typical teenager. I can't stand being at home and mom and dad do this and I want that. And then you go to a boarding school with a bunch of other people your age, and it's like, oh, this is so much better. But I actually like how mom and dad do this X, Y, and
yeah,
Z, and it really helps. I found it to be very helpful forming as a young adult to be like, okay, there isn't just one way of doing things, and
totally.
that's just a little microcosm of the bigger picture.
One of the greatest ways of growing is to travel. And I can tell you, as having lived
Yeah.
in Germany for 8 years now, exactly as you're saying, Father, it's so true. And you get and I think Americans are especially bad at this, to be honest. I think we are really bad about being arrogant or ignorant or both about other cultures, because we do have very strong patriotism, which I do think is a good thing. I like that better than the Germans who hate themselves. But the bad side of it is that we don't really actually think about other cultures. We think, so a good example is American capitalism. We just think that's it. Don't shut up. Don't even talk to me about any other form of economy. And then you come to Germany, and it's they say it's socialism, but not really. It's more social, it's more regulated, etc. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying at all it's better. But it's not just garbage. It's not. It's like you can't just be like, oh, it's stupid. It's socialism. Like, well, tell you what, come and live here for a couple of years and tell me it's not nice to go to the doctor for free or to have free education.
Right.
There are good points to it. Now there are also bad. We can't homeschool. So I get that, but I think that again that it really is something that I hope we can bring from this international perspective and really get this really think about politics. So we're going to talk about the daily stuff because, for one, I think that's what people want to hear. Two, because that's what YouTube wants to hear. But I hope that we can take these things and then turn them also into conversations about much deeper issues. So we're talking about Trump's election. Okay, great. But let's talk about Trump's election and what is democracy? Where did that come from? Why do we do democracy? And I think that would be, did it begin in America? And I think that a lot of really interesting things that can be covered. And again, there are definitely people on this channel who are much, much smarter than I am. I hope that they're going to put the time into it, which I know they can. My dad, Eric, people know something that Matt, a couple other guys, Frankie, Corey, really smart guys who, you're going to bring a lot to this, guys. You're going to learn a lot on this channel. I'm really convinced of it. And we're also very grateful to have Father Geckle. It's awesome. Father, I'm really, really happy that you're part of this. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for the channel. I hope everyone goes and subscribes.
Look at this conversation. We started talking. All we thought about talking about was Hunter Biden and that. And
then we talked about him for like 5 minutes.
Discussion.
Like, okay, moving on. But
some people like that.
Yeah, some people like. Well, and we'll see. I think we'll grow as we go. We'll find out. Okay, are we going to be more online? I'm terrible about just deviating and then never going back. But sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's not. Well, we'll see. And everyone in the comments, though, there probably won't be too many. At least not on the Traditionalists, because I think we have about 6 subscribers right now, which is actually okay. Let us know in the comments.
Me and you are 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Do you like it to be kind of a loosey-goosey conversation? Do you like it to be really, no, cover the news? Maybe both. Maybe we do one segment loosey-goosey, one segment of covering the news. It is a learning experience. Father and I we've done plenty of shows together, but obviously very different than this. So we'd love to hear your feedback as well. Tell us as we go through this what you like, what you don't like, because in the end, that actually does matter. We actually do want to make people happy, and we want to grow the channel, and we also want to provide good, thought-provoking, and content that ultimately, of course, leads people to God, because that's in the end, of course, all that matters. Father, I guess we'll wrap it up. I mean, again, we could go back to the Hunter Biden thing, but
that's okay.
Yeah, we went so far away that it's like, yeah. Next time, next week.
Yeah,
next week.
I just want to second what you were saying there, as far as getting feedback from people. I know we're not going to be able to match everybody's expectations or their hopes or whatever, but I at least will be looking at the feedback to see what people say. Don't worry, you won't offend me. I already know I'm ugly and I'm bald and I'm annoying. I already know that. But that's just a little levity. But no, I do want to see where the interest is about our discussions or whatever, because that'll help direct how we have these shows. At least for I can speak to the show that I'll be on. So yeah, as you were saying, leave a comment, share some feedback, what things you'd be interested in. That's what we're kind of one of the reasons why we did this show today. At least my thought on it was to try to get a feel for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just try to get a feel for it and get some feedback.
And I would say already we know we're really bad about staying on topic. But we can have a really good and interesting conversation.
We can be honest about it.
Yeah, we can be honest about it. So that's what. But we again exactly. we want your feedback because we do want to see. This is very new, and we're not actually officially starting until January 1st. So we actually do want to know, okay, what should we do? And I'd say we probably got to stay a little more on topic, but I really do think we could do maybe 2 segments, one on topic, one off. We'll see. Well, let us know what you guys think, and do go subscribe. This is going to be on the Catholic Family Podcast this week, maybe next. And then it's gone. And then it's going to go over to the Traditionalists as well as all this other content, which is going to be really, really good. So share it, like it, subscribe to it, all that stuff. Hit the bell. The content will be coming soon, 3 weeks from now or so. And it'll start trickling in. I think you'll see some more practice pancakes, and they may be pretty rough. But stick with us. We're figuring this out. We're figuring it out live, I suppose you could say, and you get to grow with us. Just like you did with Catholic Family Podcast. The ones back at the beginning were pretty rough. That was a rough time, good time, but Father was way back. I think you were in one of the first 5, Father, way back when.
Oh man,
long time
yeah,
ago. It's a good one though. It's a good one. I've actually still gotten compliments on that show about how to talk with non-Catholics or how to proselytize, something like that. It's very good.
I don't know what it was. It was one of those very rambling ones. Just
so what we
worse than this one, I think.
Yeah, but sometimes, see, people like them the best. Awesome. Father, until next time, hopefully next week we'll be here again, maybe one more week on Catholic Family Podcast, and then to the Traditionalists. Go subscribe right now, or you will just maybe never see Father's beautiful face ever again. So make sure you go over there and subscribe.
Don't encourage them.
You get to see him every single Friday. And you'll see me too. Until then, everybody, have a great week. God bless.